You know the exact moment the battle is lost.
Oh, yeah.
Your alarm goes off, and before your feet even touch the cold floor, you reach over to the nightstand. The screen lights up the dark room, and immediately you are completely submerged.
Right into it.
Right, you're hit with like 3 urgent emails from your boss, a barrage of push notifications, maybe a dozen Slack messages demanding immediate answers. And right there, before you've even made it to the kitchen for a cup of coffee, you can actually feel your cognitive battery draining.
It's gone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a busy professional. You go to sleep intending to conquer the next day, yet by what, 9 in the morning? You're already exhausted. Your entire day has just become this reactionary scramble.
It's a deeply exhausting way to live, but we have to recognize that this is a structural reality of modern professional life. It's not just a personal failing.
Right, it feels personal, but it isn't.
Exactly, because we operate in an environment that is fundamentally designed to scatter attention. I mean, the entire digital ecosystem thrives on keeping us in a state of constant impulsive reaction.
And that is exactly our mission for this deep dive. We're going to take that chaotic, fragmented morning and just completely rebuild it.
I love it.
We're extracting the core framework from a really fascinating concept called internal leadership, the architecture of self-mastery. And the goal here isn't to just give you, another generic productivity hack.
Right, no more drink lemon water advice.
Exactly. The goal is to construct a highly practical daily schedule that shifts you out of that frantic, reactionary state and into a deliberate sequence of intentional action.
And the central argument we're working with here is quite profound, I think. True professional power, the kind that actually commands respect and executes high-level strategy, it isn't about grand gestures.
Yeah.
It's about an internal shift. It's this quiet transition from being an impulsive reactor, completely at the mercy of your environment, to becoming a self-governed leader.
It starts with bringing ruthless order to your internal world, right? So that your outer professional life can basically follow suit.
Precisely. Before you can execute massive professional goals or, lead a team or launch a complex project, you have to reclaim control of your own mind.
And that really starts with understanding attention as a literal currency. I thought it was a great way to frame it.
It is the single most valuable currency you possess. I mean, whoever controls your attention is quite literally shaping your professional destiny.
Right.
If you do not actively direct your own focus, the digital world will happily extract it from you. An impulsive person is highly profitable to the digital economy.
Because they click on everything.
Exactly.
Right.
A distracted professional is easily influenced. If you can't govern your own attention, you become incredibly easy to control.
Which means the very first step in our new morning sequence has to be a full stop. Like before checking a single message, the framework demands intentional silence.
Yes.
Now, on the surface, that sounds like standard meditation advice, right? Like take a few deep breaths, relax. But the source text looks at silence differently here. It's positioned as a strategic tool for emotional regulation.
Right. This isn't about emptying your mind to feel zen or whatever. It's about establishing a fortified buffer zone.
A buffer zone.
Yeah, think of intentional silence as a mechanism to separate your true long-term professional objectives from those impulsive, low-level reactions that usually hijack our mornings.
Because when you wake up, your nervous system is immediately anticipating inputs.
Exactly. And by enforcing silence, you are deliberately starving that anticipation.
Yeah.
A person who cannot sit with their own baseline thoughts will constantly look outside for relief.
Whether that's through a news feed or a quick email check or just, an endless scroll. Let's ground this, actually. If your attention is like a corporate bank account,
I love this analogy.
you wouldn't just leave your company's checkbook on a park bench and let random strangers write checks from your operating fund.
Yeah,
Right?
you'd be fired.
Exactly. So it's wild that we let a random push notification instantly withdraw our mental focus.
It really is.
But, okay, playing devil's advocate here. For a busy executive or an entrepreneur whose mind is naturally running a mile a minute, sitting in silence can feel, agonizing. Personally, doing nothing just makes me spiral about my inbox and all the things I'm not doing.
Oh, sure.
So how does sitting there, marinating in anxiety, actually build inner power rather than just stressing us out?
Well, the anxiety you feel in that silence is exactly the mechanism of growth, that spiral you're describing. It isn't a sign that silence is failing.
Right.
No, it's a sign of cognitive withdrawal. Your brain is craving the cheap dopamine of a quick digital interaction. When you sit in that discomfort and absolutely refuse to reach for your phone, you are stopping a massive energy leak.
You're reclaiming your autonomy.
Exactly. If you immediately give in to the anxiety of the to-do list, your mind is behaving like an undisciplined crowd panicking at the first sign of friction.
Wow, an undisciplined crowd. That's a great image.
Right. Sitting through the urge teaches your nervous system that you do not have to react to every single internal thought or external demand immediately. Building tolerance for that discomfort is the absolute bedrock of actual professional power.
So, step 1 of the schedule.
Mm.
Wake up and enforce the buffer. Stop the leak.
Stop the leak.
And the immediate side effect of that silence is clarity, isn't it? Once that mental fog of anticipation clears, you can no longer hide from what you've been avoiding.
You're staring right at it.
You're staring right at the hardest task of the day. And that is the second phase of this morning architecture, tackling the most challenging, complex problem first, before the excuses can even gather.
The timing here is just critical. Your brain is biologically wired to seek comfort, right? To conserve energy.
Yeah, we're fundamentally lazy.
Deep, challenging work requires immense cognitive calories. If you give yourself a 2-hour window of answering easy emails just to quote-unquote warm up,
Oh, I do that all the time.
we all do.
Yeah.
But if you do that, your brain will find a dozen perfectly rational-sounding reasons to delay the hard project until tomorrow. You have to move on the hard task before the rationalization engine starts running.
But let's look at how this plays out in the real world, because it gets incredibly messy.
Always does.
You've protected your morning, you've done your silence, you are sitting down to finally write that massive strategy document, and then bam,
Yeah.
you get a sudden, urgent demand. An 8 a.m. fire drill email from your boss or a major client. There's some big issue with the deliverable. How on earth do you handle that without completely abandoning this planned sequence? I mean, we can't just ignore our jobs.
No, you can't. But we have to dissect the psychology of that 8 a.m. fire drill.
Yeah.
There is a massive difference between a genuine emergency and artificial urgency.
Okay, distinguish those for me.
Well, most of modern corporate life is built on artificial urgency. If a server is literally on fire and the company is losing thousands of dollars a minute, yes, obviously handle it.
Right. And your morning silence has hopefully given you the calm to manage that crisis without panic.
Exactly. But more often than not, an 8 a.m. fire drill is simply someone else's anxiety trying to disguise itself as your priority.
Oh, that is so true. And if we're being completely honest here, we actually secretly love those artificial emergencies.
Oh, we completely do.
Because, I mean, answering a panicked email from a colleague gives us this massive, cheap dopamine hit of productivity.
Right. It rescues you from the painful ambiguity of that hard project you're supposed to be working on.
Exactly. We get to play the hero, put out a tiny fire, and then completely excuse ourselves from doing the actual deep work that actually moves the needle.
That is the exact trap. A self-governed professional learns to evaluate these demands objectively. You acknowledge the message, you provide a boundary, maybe saying you'll review it fully at 10 a.m., and then you return to your hard task.
So you move with your own force, rather than just absorbing the kinetic energy of other people's chaos.
Precisely. Because if you drop everything the second a message comes in, you are training your team and your clients that your attention is cheap.
You are literally teaching them to interrupt you.
Yes.
But, executing that hard task and holding those boundaries,
Yeah.
it requires an immense amount of cognitive fuel.
Yeah.
And right now, most professionals are leaking that fuel everywhere.
Constantly.
Which brings us to the third part of this routine, pruning. The concept here is that to become stronger, something weaker inside you must be starved.
Yes.
Growth isn't always about adding a new workflow app. Sometimes it's purely about removal.
The tragedy of many professional lives isn't a lack of opportunity or even a lack of talent. It's that people are overfed by distraction and underfed by purpose.
I'm going to like that, overfed by distraction.
We are constantly stimulated but rarely sharpened. You cannot execute the hardest task of your day if your working memory is bogged down by a dozen open loops from social media and news feeds. We have to identify the specific leaks in your daily routine.
Let's actually create a mental checklist right now for the listener to help identify which specific digital habits are triggering that procrastination and draining the battery.
Good idea.
Ask yourself, what are you consuming that creates a fog? Are you spending like 30 minutes every morning on LinkedIn, constantly comparing your behind-the-scenes reality to everyone else's highlight reel of promotions?
That's a huge one. It doesn't just waste time, it actively drains your emotional stamina.
Exactly. Or consider how often you consume endless podcasts or articles disguised as, quote, industry research, when in reality, you are just avoiding the blank page.
Yes, productive procrastination. Or perhaps you are chasing validation in group chats from people who do not actually have any stake in your real work.
The friction here is that we all know exactly which apps and habits are draining our standards. We just want the transformation without the shedding.
We want the discipline of a top-tier executive without sacrificing our comfortable scrolling habits.
We want clarity without restraint. But as the source text emphasizes, you cannot keep feeding the mechanisms that destroy your focus and then act surprised when your focus disappears.
It's impossible.
You can't complain about mysterious afternoon burnout when you actively invite thousands of data points into your nervous system before breakfast.
And that refusal to shed those comfortable distractions is exactly what erodes our capacity to rely on ourselves, which bridges us directly to the fourth critical element.
Yeah.
Keeping promises to yourself.
The glue of the whole architecture.
Yes, this is where it all comes together. Confidence is frequently misunderstood as a mood or like a sudden wave of motivation.
Right.
It isn't. Confidence is the natural neurological result of self-integrity.
This is such a vital concept. Think about the mechanics of trust in a corporate setting. If a vendor constantly tells you, "I'll deliver that report by Tuesday," and they consistently fail to do so, your trust in them drops to zero.
Immediately. You wouldn't rely on them for anything critical.
No. So why do we think our own subconscious mind doesn't notice when we do the exact same thing to ourselves?
Your subconscious mind operates the exact same way. If you promise yourself you are going to block out 60 minutes for deep strategy work, and instead you spend 45 minutes answering low-level Slack messages, your brain records that broken agreement.
It takes notes.
It's an evidence-gathering machine. Every time you negotiate your way out of a commitment, your subconscious registers that your word means very little. This creates a deep inner fracture.
The profound weight of misalignment.
Yes, you start feeling apathetic and weak because, on a baseline level, you know you are living a life of constant compromise.
It creates a massive gap between the professional you pretend to be on a resume and the professional you actually are on a random Tuesday morning.
Exactly.
But, okay, we have to address the reality of human behavior here.
Yeah.
You're going to have setbacks.
Yeah.
You will oversleep. You'll give in to the siren song of a Reddit rabbit hole.
It happens to everyone.
So when you inevitably fail to keep a personal promise, how does this framework prevent you from just throwing the entire routine away?
The governing principle here, and this is one of my favorite takeaways from the text, is that you do not rise to your wishes. You fall to your training.
You fall to your training. Wow.
When a setback occurs, an untrained mind immediately searches for a loophole. It starts an internal debate. Well, I already checked my email during my silence block, so today is ruined. I'll just try again on Monday.
Oh, the all-or-nothing trap.
Exactly. But a stronger self-governed mind simply falls back on the structure. You don't drown in guilt. You don't renegotiate your entire identity. You simply execute the very next correct action.
You just return to the agreement you made with yourself.
Because discipline is ultimately about freedom from internal negotiation.
Think about the sheer volume of cognitive energy we waste just arguing with ourselves. Should I start the project now? Maybe after one more coffee? Maybe after I clear my inbox?
It completely fragments your spirit.
But when your word becomes unshakable, professional life radically simplifies. You said you would block the time, so you block the time. There is less drama and significantly more force behind your actions.
And every single kept promise, refusing to open the browser until the silence is over, forcing yourself to outline the hard project before checking messages, it all becomes tangible evidence.
Proof.
It proves to your nervous system that your future rests on a stable foundation, not on fleeting emotional states. This is how keeping tiny, seemingly insignificant daily promises directly impacts your long-term ability to make massive professional decisions. You actually trust your own judgment.
So let's look at the complete sequence as it comes together. You wake up. You enforce intentional silence to build the buffer.
Step 1.
You leverage that clarity to attack the hardest task before rationalizations begin. You starve the digital distractions that drain your battery, and you ruthlessly keep the small promises you make to yourself.
And these aren't isolated life hacks. They compound into a fundamentally different identity. This is habit 5, framing the morning as internal leadership. You shift from being an impulsive reactor into a self-governed leader.
We're talking about two entirely different paradigms of working here.
Mm-hmm.
The impulsive reactor is constantly fragmented.
Their attention is always for sale to the highest bidder, usually an algorithm or a really demanding client.
Right. They're exhausted by the noise and highly susceptible to that artificial urgency we discussed earlier.
While the self-governed leader operates with a quiet gravity, they can delay gratification. They don't react to every fluctuation in the market or every panicked email.
They are terrifyingly consistent. Every time you stay silent instead of reacting blindly, you are literally voting for mastery.
Yes, but building that terrifying consistency takes time. The source text uses this great analogy. It's like pouring a concrete foundation for a skyscraper.
Okay.
For months, it looks like absolutely nothing is happening above ground. You are just digging a massive hole in the dark. It feels totally unrewarding. But if you try to build a massive structure upward without letting that concrete cure, the entire building will inevitably collapse under its own weight.
And that delay between the effort and the visible result is exactly where most people quit. I mean, if you go to the gym, your muscles ache. You have immediate physical feedback that it's working.
Right.
But if you just sit in silence and do your hard task, how long before you actually feel like this self-governed leader? What are the subtle signs of progress a listener should monitor in those first few weeks while the concrete is, curing?
The shifts are subtle, but they are undeniable. First, you will notice changes in your physical posture when you approach your desk.
Really? Posture.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
You aren't bracing yourself for an attack anymore. You'll also notice a change in your speech. You will likely speak less, but your words will carry more weight because they aren't driven by frantic energy.
That makes sense.
You'll find that your cravings for cheap digital dopamine lose their intensity. Your ability to sustain eye contact improves. The people around you, your team, your peers, they'll start registering a different presence, a distinct lack of anxiety, even if they can't quite articulate what has changed.
You change the internal atmosphere long before the external metrics, the promotions, the revenue, actually catch up. The foundation is built in the dark where the applause cannot reach.
Exactly. And if your professional routine requires constant applause or a daily wave of extreme motivation, it is fragile.
Yeah.
The professionals who sustain long-term dominance rely on structure. They protect their cognitive energy relentlessly. They understand that Tuesday doesn't need to feel exciting, it needs to be aligned.
So to bring this all together into a tangible reality for you, the listener, the peace of mind, the razor-sharp focus, and the career autonomy you are chasing, they are not hiding in the next software update.
Or some new organizational framework.
No, they are hidden squarely behind the exact habits you are currently avoiding.
The clarity you want requires the silence you are resisting.
And the professional freedom you want requires strict internal restraint. You have to stop betraying yourself in the small, unseen moments of your morning.
That's the core of it.
This is the call to action. Tomorrow morning, the sequence begins. When that alarm sounds, do not reach for the digital world.
Reach for your own center.
Enforce the silence. Confront the hard project. Do not ask your fleeting emotions for permission to do what matters.
Absolutely.
And as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with one final concept to mull over. The source material draws a really profound distinction between a version of softness that heals and a version of softness that ruins.
That's a powerful thought.
Going into your work week tomorrow, look closely at how you manage your time and your energy. Are you using terms like self-care or flexibility or even research as a disguised form of that ruining softness? Are you using modern corporate buzzwords simply as a sophisticated excuse to avoid the necessary grueling discomfort of your own potential? Think about it. We'll see you next time.